In a single decision, billions were frozen and the world held its breath across the nation. Screens flickered with urgent alerts, headlines screaming, numbers plunging, markets trembling. Wall Street brokers dropped their phones mid-call, eyes wide, hearts racing. Families opening retirement accounts saw balances vanish into uncertainty. Disbelief spread like wildfire. Trump stood at the podium, a cold smirk crossing his face, announcing the $9.30 billion freeze with unshakable confidence. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every sharp gesture, every calculated pause. Social media erupted instantly. Tweets surged, videos went viral, hashtags trended within minutes. Citizens watched from their homes, scrolling, sharing, panicking. What does this mean for us? Became the silent scream echoing in millions of heads. In corridors of power, aides whispered, strategy scrambled, political commentators tried to make sense of the chaos. Every prediction seemed fragile, every plan vulnerable. The nation felt unmoored, caught between fear and fascination. But in the shadows of this monumental upheaval, someone quietly prepared a response. One sentence, carefully chosen, would soon flip the narrative upside down. The world, still reeling, would never see it coming. The announcement sent shockwaves far beyond Wall Street. Newsrooms lit up with flashing banners, pundits raising their voices in alarm, analysts scribbling furiously to interpret the fallout. For ordinary Americans, it was more than numbers. It was a question of stability, security, and survival. Retirement funds, public projects, even federal programs seemed suddenly at risk, teetering on the edge of chaos. Anxiety gripped homes from coast to coast. Every headline carried the weight of uncertainty, every alert a pulse of panic. Trump's office, however, exuded a different energy. Calm, resolute, unapologetic. His decision was framed not as hesitation, but as power, a force to be reckoned with. The man behind the freeze was both fearless and calculated, indifferent to the panic rippling across the country. He knew the optics, the headlines, the attention his move would command. For him, it was strategy, dominance, control. For everyone else, it was a storm descending without warning. Across the political spectrum, speculation soared. Opponents denounced the freeze as reckless. Allies celebrated the audacity. Social media exploded with debate, outrage, memes, and predictions. Every platform a theater of tension. Ordinary citizens scrolled in disbelief, feeling both fear and fascination, unable to look away. The air was thick with the sense that something unprecedented was unfolding, that a single decision had rewritten the rules of the game. And yet, behind the frenzy, a quieter narrative began to take shape. Someone was watching, calculating, preparing a response that would challenge everything Trump had assumed. What happened next would not just counteract the freeze, it would rewrite the entire narrative. To understand why Trump made this move, we need to see the man behind the headlines. Donald Trump had always thrived in the spotlight, turning controversy into currency and audacity into advantage. From the towers of Manhattan to the Oval Office, his career was a masterclass in bold, unapologetic moves. Deals were made with a mix of bravado and calculation. Headlines bent to his favor, opponents intimidated by his sheer presence. Critics saw arrogance, but his followers admired decisiveness, a man who acted without hesitation, who gambled big and often won. Financially, his record was a patchwork of triumph and scandal. Markets rose at his announcements, faltered at his tweets, and Wall Street learned quickly to fear both. He relished the disruption, the uncertainty he sowed. It was power crystallized in motion. Television clips replayed moments where his confidence overshadowed dissent, moments where his instinct for spectacle silenced debate. Every freeze, every policy reversal, every sharp decision reinforced the narrative. Trump was untouchable, untamed, and unapologetically self-serving. Yet, beneath the surface, a tactical mind calculated every ripple effect. He understood optics better than most politicians, predicting outrage before it emerged, framing it to cement his dominance. The arrogance was deliberate, a weapon shaped to control not just the economy, but perception itself. Social media buzzed with reactions, memes, and hashtags, all feeding the narrative of his dominance, while ordinary citizens felt powerless, swept along by a current they could neither steer nor escape. History itself seemed to bend around him. Controversial financial maneuvers, public feuds, and political gambits were not mistakes. They were signals of strategy. For some, his name was synonymous with audacity. For others, it sparked distrust, fear, and incredulity. The country watched, riveted, divided, and unsettled. But on the other side, Someone quietly prepared a one-sentence response that would shake the nation, challenge this carefully cultivated image, and turn the tide in ways no one could anticipate. Crockett was not born into power or privilege. His early years were defined by struggle, by the quiet resilience that comes from navigating a world that often underestimated him. Immigrant roots, long hours of study, and relentless curiosity shaped a mind honed for strategy and insight. While others chased spectacle, he mastered nuance. While others sought applause, he sought understanding. Every challenge he faced had strengthened him. Every setback sharpened his focus. By the time the $9.3 billion freezes hit, Crockett was already preparing. He had spent years analyzing policy, tracking political patterns, and observing the rhythms of power. His intellect was methodical, his approach measured. Where the world saw chaos, he saw openings. Where panic spread, he found clarity. Crockett embodied calm in a storm, dignity in confrontation, and reason in a climate dominated by bluster. Unlike the brash, theatrical moves of his adversary, Crockett operated in silence, letting strategy speak louder than rhetoric. He anticipated the media frenzy, the social media whirlwind, the tension that gripped citizens and analysts alike. Each variable, each consequence, each angle had been considered. Every detail was a potential lever. His strength was not just knowledge, but the patience and precision to wait for the right moment, the right phrasing, the right impact. There was also a moral dimension that separated him from the spectacle. Crockett understood that public service and accountability mattered more than headlines. His principles were rooted in empathy and foresight, a recognition that true leadership required more than power. It demanded responsibility. In every move, in every calculation, he carried the weight of consequence, aware of lives affected, futures altered, and trust tested. As he reviewed the latest economic reports, scrolling through news alerts and market reactions, Crockett's expression remained calm, focused. Each figure, each headline, each tremor in public sentiment was another piece of a puzzle that would soon fit together. The room seemed to slow around him. The tension outside heightened, yet he moved deliberately, preparing a response that would challenge the narrative, shake assumptions, and restore balance. The nation braced for impact, oblivious to the quiet storm building. When the confrontation came, it would not be loud, chaotic, or impulsive. It would be precise, strategic, and devastating in its clarity. Crockett's one sentence would soon test the audacity of a man accustomed to control, and in that moment, the true stakes of the $9.3 billion freeze would finally come into focus. The stage was set. Cameras swiveled, microphones poised, reporters scribbling furiously. Every eye was fixed, every heartbeat amplified. As the $9.3 billion freeze became more than a number, it became a battlefield. Trump took the floor first, voice booming, gesturing with the force of certainty. Words were sharp, unyielding, designed to dominate the room and unsettle anyone who dared question him. Each statement carried weight, each pause a calculated pressure point. Crockett listened, unflinching, calm, composed. He absorbed every argument, weighing rhetoric against fact, spectacle against logic. Trump's verbal jabs, designed to intimidate, fell like hollow echoes against the wall of Crockett's poise. Every sarcastic remark, every dismissive smirk from Trump was met with steady eyes and measured silence. The contrast was stark: chaos versus control, bluster versus reason. Reporters leaned forward, sensing the tension, capturing every flicker of frustration crossing Trump's face. His impatience grew as Crockett countered quietly but firmly, reframing the conversation with precise data, historical precedent, and piercing insight. Whispers spread across the room, aides exchanged worried glances. The public watching from home felt the suspense, hearts racing as social media feeds exploded with live commentary, threads debating every word. Subtle public humiliations began to surface. Trump interrupted, attempted to dominate the narrative, yet Crockett's calm responses highlighted inconsistencies, turning the audience's attention toward the hero's measured reasoning. Every rebuttal added pressure, each pause building anticipation. The atmosphere thickened with curiosity and unease. Would the freeze hold? Could the narrative survive? The nation watched as a quiet storm challenged a towering force, as dignity and precision confronted arrogance and spectacle. Then, the moment arrived that would make history. Crockett rose from his seat, calm as ever, eyes steady on the audience, the cameras, and the man who had dominated headlines for weeks. The room, previously buzzing with tension and chatter, fell silent. Every reporter leaned forward. Every political analyst held their breath. Every citizen watching from home felt the sudden gravity of the moment. He spoke, one sentence, simple, precise, and devastating in its clarity. The words cut through the noise like a scalpel, deliberate, measured, undeniable. In that instant, the room seemed to freeze. Trump's confident smirk faltered. His usual bravado faltered under the weight of the logic and insight packed into those few words. The hero's composure, unshakable and dignified, stood in stark contrast to the crumbling facade of arrogance before him. Journalists scrambled, pens and cameras capturing every nuance. Social media erupted almost instantaneously. Tweets multiplied like wildfire. Trending hashtags reflected astonishment, shock, admiration. Crockett just ended this. The nation needs to hear this. This one sentence changes everything. The comments streamed across platforms, echoing the collective sense of awe. Memes appeared in minutes, some humorous, others reverent, all reinforcing the seismic shift that had just occurred. In the room, murmurs spread, the energy palpable. Allies of Trump exchanged uneasy glances. His own aides whispered in frantic urgency. Analysts debated. Experts dissected the sentence, its implications rippling outward, bouncing from studios to living rooms, from feeds to dinner tables. Every word Crockett had spoken carried authority, credibility, and moral weight. The freeze, once an act of unilateral power, now seemed exposed, vulnerable, and suddenly questionable. Trump's attempts to interrupt or reclaim the narrative fell flat. Each falter, each hesitation, magnified the contrast. One man controlled by ego and spectacle, the other guided by intellect and principle. The tension built, the room vibrating with electricity as the audience, both in the chamber and online, realized they were witnessing something historic. Every pause Crockett allowed was strategic. Every glance, every deliberate syllable intensified the impact. In that single moment, weeks of chaos, uncertainty, and fear transformed into clarity, vindication, and awe. A narrative built on shock and dominance was upended by precision, dignity, and insight. The nation couldn't stop talking about it, and the shockwaves were immediate. Within minutes, the world seemed to tilt. Social media feeds exploded as Crockett's sentence was dissected, celebrated, and shared across every platform. Tweets multiplied at lightning speed. I knew Crockett would do it. This is historic. He just rewrote the rules. Hashtags climbed into the trending charts, memes spread like wildfire, and reaction videos flooded timelines, capturing the astonished faces of citizens, commentators, and even rivals. News anchors replayed the moment on loop. Analysts debating the implications with heated intensity. Cable channels switched from speculation to celebration of strategy and composure, the contrast between hero and villain dominating every segment. Clips of Crockett, Shradra's calm delivery were dissected for tone, phrasing, and impact, each playback reinforcing the clarity and brilliance of his response. Fast-cut visuals of tweets, breaking headlines, and scrolling feeds mirrored the nation's collective pulse. Anxiety transformed into empowerment. Celebrities, journalists, and public figures weighed in, amplifying the narrative. Each endorsement, each reaction added layers of validation. Admiration, surprise, and inspiration radiated outward, touching millions who had felt powerless just hours before. Citizens posted their own reflections, celebrating reason over chaos, dignity over arrogance. The room for debate had shifted. Public perception had pivoted in real time. Amid the frenzy, ordinary Americans felt a rare sense of vindication. The anxiety and uncertainty that had gripped homes and offices began to ebb, replaced by pride and excitement. Crockett's composure had done more than challenge a billionaire. He had reminded a nation of the power of intellect, patience, and principle. The moment became shared history, a story told across generations and devices, a narrative that reinforced hope and possibility in the face of dominance and spectacle. But beyond the chaos, a deeper lesson emerged, one that transcended headlines, hashtags, and fleeting outrage. It was a truth about dignity, responsibility, and the quiet strength that can reshape the course of events when wielded with clarity and courage. In the quiet that followed the storm, the significance of Crockett's words began to sink in. What had started as a battle over billions had transformed into a lesson far greater than numbers or headlines. Integrity had triumphed over arrogance. Strategy had outmaneuvered spectacle. Calm had eclipsed chaos. Across the nation, citizens paused, reflecting not just on the frieze, but on the example set by a man who acted with foresight, principle, and unwavering dignity. Slowly, the media shifted its focus from confrontation to reflection. Analysts highlighted the lessons embedded in Crockett's response. Careful planning, measured judgment, and moral courage could move mountains even when facing forces that seemed unstoppable. Clips of the debate were replayed, not for drama, but for study. Citizens, students, and commentators alike dissecting the clarity and ethical strength behind a single sentence that had rewritten the narrative. Communities online and offline shared a collective realization. Leadership is not about dominating a room or commanding attention. It is about making decisions that uphold justice and inspire trust. Crockett had reminded the nation that real power lies in responsibility, empathy, and the ability to act decisively without sacrificing principle. In boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms, the conversation shifted from fear to inspiration, from division to reflection. The story of the $9.30 billion freeze became more than a headline. It became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the impact one person can have when intellect and integrity align. Ordinary citizens found hope in Crockett's calm mastery, understanding that courage does not roar. It guides, steadies, and transforms. As the debates quieted and the social media storm settled, the nation began to internalize a universal truth. Dignity outlasts spectacle, justice triumphs over chaos, and even in the face of overwhelming power, one voice, measured and principled, can change everything. The stage was now set for reflection, for action, for participation. The lesson was clear, and the call to engage with purpose and awareness had never been stronger. The story of Trump's $9.3 billion freeze and Crockett's single, game-changing sentence is more than political drama. It is a lesson in power, principle, and the impact one voice can have on the course of history. In a world dominated by spectacle and chaos, Crockett showed that calm, integrity, and strategic thinking can not only challenge the powerful, but redefine the narrative entirely. As the headlines fade and the social media storm settles, the echoes of that moment remain. Citizens, students, professionals, and leaders alike are reminded that influence does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers with precision, patience, and purpose. History often turns on the smallest, most deliberate actions, and Crockett's response stands as a testament to that truth. Now, it's your turn. Be part of the conversation. Share this story, reflect on the lessons, and engage with the ideas that shape our nation. Witness how clarity, courage, and conviction can ripple across communities, inspire change, and challenge assumptions. Don't underestimate the power of one sentence, one action, or one individual standing firm. Subscribe to stay informed, be inspired, and ensure you never miss a moment when history hangs in the balance. Step into the story, join the dialogue, and remember, the world shifts when dignity and courage meet opportunity.